I'd like to call our June 17th Design Review Commission meeting to order. Can we have roll call?
Dovelmore,
Here?
Hanson,
Here.
Carlson,
Here.
Abisher.
Here.
All right. We have a consent calendar that we need to review, approve minutes for our November 25th, 2024 hearing. Do we have a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Do we have a second?
I second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye. No, not opposed. All ayes.
Okay, all ayes. All right. Okay, motion passes. Do you need record of who made the motion and who second?
I would appreciate you saying the name. I know who they are by hearing them as well, but yeah, for future.
Okay, all right. Okay. So we don't have any old business to review. I do want to make a review of proceedings with an opening statement before we go into new business. Just a review of the proceedings. We're going to ask that the commission, if they can hold questions on the application until the applicant has had a chance to present and/or limit their questions of staff following their presentation to those they don't think the applicant will be able to answer. This is a public hearing. It's not a quasi-judicial hearing as the subject matter. Within these meetings are not judicial in nature. The public hearing procedures as required by Idaho Code are as follows. Oral and written testimony will be accepted from those who have signed in to speak prior to the hearing being declared open. When providing testimony, please come to the podium and state your name and address, which will be included in the record. Staff will first present a report regarding the application being considered. The applicant or the applicant's representative will present a summary of the request. You'll get 10 minutes. Testimony of those in support will be taken, followed by those in a neutral position, and finally those in opposition to the request. All public testimony will be limited to 3 minutes or less. And then the applicant will be offered the opportunity to provide rebuttal testimony. After the rebuttal testimony is given, the public testimony portion of the public hearing will be closed and no new oral or written testimony will be allowed. Okay, so our new business, our action item for today is public hearing case number DR 25-00003. The applicant, Tees Development LLC, is requesting design review approval for a new mixed-use building in the city center. The building is 3 stories with a 13,600 square foot footprint and a total indoor square footage of 36,300 square feet, and is proposed to include retail, restaurant, office, and residential uses. The application is only for the design of the building and site. Any specific uses will need to apply for entitlements in the future if required. The approximately 1 acre site is addressed as 510 Arthur Street and is located on the south corner of the intersection between Arthur and 5th Avenue.
Thank you. Good afternoon now. For the record, my name is Joseph Dodson, I'm the principal planner here. I'll probably be doing a lot of the DR hearings for you guys. April, our associate planner, will also be doing them in the future too. Just to let the commission know, good to meet you all. Officially, welcome. Project that we have today is Commons at Creek Crossing. I have the wrong application number up there. I apologize. It is DR 25-000003, just for the record. As noted, the site is located at 5th and Arthur. Arthur is vacated technically, even though people are still using it as a roadway and parking there. It has technically already been vacated as of quite a long time, actually, by now, many months. This vacation occurred as part of the partnership with the landowners of this site when the city handed this over through the Urban Rural District to the applicants. It is approximately an acre. There's existing sidewalk, obviously the roadway, and then there is sidewalk along 5th that will be replaced and improved to essentially the same type of sidewalk that is along the creek to match that aesthetic. The specific request today is for design review of the building and of the just general site design. The proposed building, as noted, is about 3 stories. Total square footage approximately 36,000 square feet. They have outdoor dining. As you can see, they have this beautiful rendering showing the different roof profiles, the different wall planes, modulation, as well as glazing with a fair amount of different materials. They are proposing the brick facade as well to help match the aesthetic and the design standards of downtown Caldwell and the Indian Creek corridor. The 3rd level is supposed to have a rooftop deck, which is something, again, that's kind of called out within the design standards as a hope and a wish that more and more of these are included, so that way you continue to activate this area and bring some life to the downtown. As far as the site is concerned, they are proposing 28 parking spaces to be off-street, and that would be located off of the alley. There's currently just a dirt lot there right now, so that would be a welcome addition. Overall, their parking requirement is being met both with the existing on-site, or I guess off-street in this case, but also downtown code permits them to basically count available on-street parking within 800 feet. So they have technically plenty of parking, as the entire downtown is kind of included in that. A key factor here is the west side of the building has a 5-foot 7-inch encroachment into the right-of-way that has been discussed with the engineering department. As long as they comply with the condition of approval, they being the applicant, then which is to enter into an encroachment agreement with the engineering department. City engineer has no issues with that encroachment, as there's plenty of room still within the actual sidewalk area for people to get by and utilize that space. My understanding from the applicant is that it had to do with some grade changes within the site and being able to match some existing drainage, because everything drains to that corner. And so I'm sure the applicant can describe it better than me, and not being an engineer, but that is my understanding of the site situation and why they had to raise it up, which then made it necessary to increase, kind of push the building a little west and it have a little raised area there. It's only a couple steps, if you can saw in the application packet, it's only raised a couple feet above grade. The other key factor here is the Arthur Street right-of-way. So because they vacated that, now they can push the building further northeast, technically, closer to the creek, keep the creek activated, keep it closer to the building itself, but then also have that nice plaza that you're seeing on the east end of this plan. There's, at the very corner, which would end up being right here, is actually going to be some amenities that have like rock outcroppings that have water fountains and then natural rock in general too. So they're trying to, again, utilize this space, not just for the building, but for the community. And then maintain that with this shared plaza with street trees, plaza space in general, seating, and maintaining the concrete brick kind of walkway that we have throughout downtown and the corridor of the creek. In general, upon reviewing it, they've met all of the standards. Any of the ones that they marked no, as I outlined in my staff report, were purposeful. They either weren't applicable or they didn't meet them because of a couple minor things. And through the design review, staff has recommended that those are be approved by this commission, because it matches the aesthetic and the feel of what we're looking for in this town. I would also like to note that the Urban Renewal District did submit an approval letter and an agreement with this, and so they have been involved heavily in this and have already essentially approved what you are seeing today. That does not preclude the commission from requesting changes, but just wanted to give that heads up on the record. So with that, staff does recommend that if the commission approves of this, that you just make your approval subject to the conditions of approval as well, that are within the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and order of decision that is the staff report. And with that, I will stand for any questions, or you can ask the applicant to come up first, and then we can do questions. No, I don't know what the packet itself is numbered. It's always numbered differently than my staff report. It's going to be one of the later pages after the analysis. I've honestly tried to number these PDFs after I compile them, and it will not let me do it appropriately. I don't understand why.
Okay.
Madam Chair, the conditions begin on page 21 of the PDF
Perfect.
under section 9, conditions of approval.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Okay.
If I can ask Joe.
Sure.
There's a reference to a landscape plan being included in this packet. Is it Exhibit 1? I'm not seeing that. Is it still to come, or?
Commissioner Hanson, the landscape plan is the site plan. That's the only one that was submitted, so my apologies. The standard conditions of approval would just call out them separately, but in this case, it was just the singular site plan that included the trees and the ground cover.
Okay. So I have a question about the brick paving and the difference between actual brick that you see throughout the downtown core
Right.
versus
Stamped
stamped
concrete.
colored concrete
Correct.
and the wear of it versus what you're going to see along the creek, which is actual brick. So could we discuss that a little bit?
Sure, absolutely. I believe you are correct. What is noted on the site plan is the colored or stamped concrete and not brick. That is a very good point. If the commission would prefer the actual brick, that is a very viable condition to include on this approval, absolutely. And that would be more compliant with the city code as well.
It's my feeling, and I certainly would love to hear from the rest of the commission, but it's my feeling that given its location and proximity to Indian Creek and what you see throughout the plaza and along other areas of Arthur, and in the downtown core with the actual red brick, that would be an appropriate requirement.
Understood. I'm sure the applicant will have something to say about that too.
Okay. Does anybody have any other questions for staff, for Joe?
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Would the applicant like to come forward?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Commissioners. My name is Jared Walgren. I'm with JGT Architecture, 1135 12th Avenue Road in Nampa. I am representing the applicant, TS Development, for this proposed application. Joe did a good job of kind of giving the history. This originated as a RFP through the Urban Renewal District. The applicant was awarded that, and we've designed this mixed-use building, corner of 5th and what was Arthur and is now vacated. I think he kind of walked through the site pretty well. I don't know, do you have my actual drawings that you can put on the sheets, or? Okay, Okay. Can you flip to a site plan maybe? Or, oh, is it? Okay. Ah. There we go. So we designed the building to be really a four-sided building. I mean, it's in an area that it will be attractive from all sides. The main feature that the applicant wanted to emphasize was the creek and its location along there. So if you had to define a main entrance to our building, it is kind of along the creek. And there weren't any specific floor plans in here. I have a couple hard copies of the actual sheets. I don't know if you want these to thumb through or if you have them in your packet. The main floor is intended to be residential retail uses. So along that ground floor, we have large glass storefronts. There's kind of a secondary main entrance that addresses a fifth that will be access to that main stair restroom core that's consistent through all three floors of the building. We kind of de-emphasized a little bit the parking lot side. Felt it was important to have some parking for the building, but that's located along more of the service side. We'll have the trash enclosure off of the alley. The plaza is intended to kind of serve the community for public events and markets. We'll put some power out there by the street trees, so you could envision some sort of city market with booths set up there on certain events. The plan of the building is intended to be stratified from retail, restaurant on the main level. The second floor will most likely be like professional office type. They've had some interests, like hair salon, that type of use. And the upper floor, they are reserving a spot for potential residential unit up there, an office unit up there, and then a larger area that can have one, maybe even two restaurants to serve the rooftop patios. The orientation of that will be real nice for solar and shade facing the northeast for those patios. The exterior form was, we didn't pick a real strong thematic, historic style, but similar to a lot of the new development around here, kind of intended for a contemporary style with some nod to traditional urban forms in your base, middle, top, traditional historic type materials with the brick to match the rest of the downtown core. And the form of the building is largely generated from the applicant's desire to have a lot of outdoor space. There's a lot of steps and balconies and just ample rooftop areas that develop some interesting forms on the structure. And we think it's going to be a great project. And with respect to the couple of issues, the one encroachment, it was due to we're trying to match grades along the creek side so we don't have to disrupt all the infrastructure that's currently there. And because of that, there's a slight dip along Fifth Avenue. And so to keep our floor elevation at the same height, we're kind of projecting out with a just little couple step platform. And that'll project 5 feet roughly into the right of way. That could be kept all on our property, but then it would kind of destroy the pedestrian nature of being able to have patio chairs and different things out right along that frontage. So that extra 5 feet into the right of way gives us some elbow room, and it still leaves plenty of pedestrian walkway between that platform and the street. And I guess with respect to the brick versus stamped concrete, I think that was a discussion with the applicant. It's really a cost issue. I think if it's a strong item that we need to consider, certainly matching the public sidewalks, where we're kind of indicating that repetitive striping pattern to match what's down here, that makes a lot of sense to be pavers. You know, our plaza, where that's kind of has a much larger area that potentially, if that could be open to a little more affordable material with the stamped concrete, maybe that could be a consideration. But certainly, it's something that we wouldn't want to hang up the project just on that one item. So I think we're open to discussion there. I guess with that, I'd be glad to stand for questions. Just ask for your approval. I think it's going to be a great project.
Thank you. So you mentioned that your project is going over a setback line. Has that been discussed with planning and zoning or with the building department? Who's had their eyes on that?
We've met with the city on that. And to clarify, none of the project is actually going over a setback. It's just that Fifth Avenue right-of-way where there's already a wide sidewalk. We just need to project a small outdoor sort of raised landing.
The ramp?
Yeah,
and
the
that
ramp,
raised
that's the only
landing?
thing that projects into that right-of-way. So, engineering was amenable to that issue. They just will need to file an encroachment agreement with the city for those. It'll be just kind of a little retaining wall and some decorative pillars and a railing to
Good.
define that outdoor patio.
And then your neighbors, the existing church, I was just, you know, when we have an infill project like this, I like to think of all of the places where we're touching the edges of something else and where those connections can be. You know, we've got two parking lots up against each other. And it doesn't look like there's any good reason to connect the two. It does look like there's a temporary exit with removable bollards. Was that per the fire department or?
Both. I mean, so we're closing off that vacated street to make it a plaza, providing some temporary bollards for both emergency access for fire department as well as an agreement that they have made with the church to allow some access through there on certain events when they have larger vehicles that they need for, apparently they have some sort of motor home that kind of comes in on certain events during the time of the year. They're allowing that access through there.
Okay.
So, Madam Chair, just as a follow-up question to all of that, in this proposed site plan, it looks like, in addition to blocking off that secondary entrance for parking into the church, there's a removal of parallel parking on the east side of the church. Do we know if the church currently is adequately parked? Are we creating a bigger issue here for them?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, I did not count those parking spaces. Churches are always hard, right? They're typically crazy busy on 1 or 2 days a week, and then the rest of the time it's relatively vacant parking. Again, because they are located downtown, they'll be able to count all of the available on-street parking, including the parking lot here at the City Hall and everything. So I would assume that overall, yes, they're going to meet their parking standard. Good question overall about, what is the 6th? Because they are closing it, they are going to remove the angled parking here to make them perpendicular. So we actually, my understanding is that it might actually gain a spot or two there overall. And then they're removing the parallel parking on the north side only because they want to maintain adequate backup space for the vehicles on these spots. So it's hopefully not going to net too much loss. I think there's also going to be additional 1 or 2 parallel parking spaces on a future design review permit closer to the intersection on 6 too. So it shouldn't, I think net loss, yes, there will be some, but as far as paved parking with the new parking lot that they'll be providing too, there's going to be more paved parking available, and that would be public parking, my understanding, not just reserved for the building technically, because again, it's all part of this downtown, area. But the bollards and everything should be adequate for access. Fire and engineering have reviewed that, as well as the required backup space for those spaces.
I have a few questions. 6th Street Avenue, when it goes into the landscaping and the sidewalk there, it just looks like it kind of straight ends. And it looks like it would be challenging for people to back up or to turn or to kind of finagle in that area. Has that been accounted for? Is that something, how will that work?
That was the challenge that we're attempting to deal with the notation on that site, is to provide, since it really isn't large enough for like a full turnaround like you would see in a fire lane, we are proposing to stripe a couple of stalls at the end to leave that area open for somebody to pull in and do like a 2-point turn and turn around. Just like you were parking in a parking space, but you'd be able to slide in and back out and turn around.
Madam Chair. In addition, Commissioner, that distance from the alley to the end of here is not 150 feet, so the fire department did not require an actual fire turnaround either. But they did want the bollards there to, just for safety and for them to access this plaza area too. But as far as a legitimate, 48-foot radius turnaround, which probably wouldn't even fit here, they did not require that because of the distance.
And I think we also discussed providing adequate signage further down on to direct people that it was a dead end.
Madam Chair, I have a question. Just curious, up to how many residential units could this hold theoretically? I see on the floor plans on the 3rd floor there is a residential / office loft. And the 2nd floor is office / retail, and the 1st floor is 3 tenant lease areas. So is it either or? Is there a maximum number or a minimum number of residential units that this development could house?
At one point, there was consideration for residential, the possibility for residential on the 2nd and 3rd floors. At this point, I think based on, their market models and what they're looking at being able to provide, it really is just that one unit on the 3rd floor, I think, is the intent. I mean, if it ever changed to where that 2nd floor, if they did want to make it available, I think when we had laid it out roughly, there would be at most 4 or 5 residential units on that 2nd. So total of 6 maximum, but I don't think it is likely headed in that direction. It's likely just the single one on the 3rd floor.
Okay, thank you. I have an additional question related to the right-of-way encroachment. As I'm not familiar with right-of-way encroachment permits very well, but I'm assuming as part of that permit agreement, it would still remain, that sidewalk would remain ADA accessible.
Yes.
For wheelchairs? Okay, thank you.
Of course, yeah. And currently, there's actually some curb cuts in there that will be kind of corrected to actually make it probably more accessible than it is now.
Great, thanks.
And our platform, of course, will have ramps. They'll actually be shallower. They won't even be a true ramp by code. It's only a foot or so of grade change, so it'll just be kind of a sloped sidewalk.
Thank you.
So I'm just I'm thinking about the plaza, and so do the building owners intend to they're going to be curating that plaza. Is it just going to be an open plaza that the public uses? Are the tenants using that? Is that something that's in discussion with Destination Caldwell as spillover space? I'm curious about the long-term use of the plaza, because sometimes those types of spaces can get neglected.
Gotcha. I mean, I would suspect that it's open to any and all of the above. I think their original intent was to curate kind of their own events that people could be a part of, but I think that's, only on select occasions, and then there on out, it would be a read as a publicly accessible plaza, just like all of the others that we see. I don't know if you guys have any.
Madam Chair, I'd like to continue that conversation on the plaza. In terms of shade, this is a pretty big space and it get pretty hot. Are you relying on trees as the main point of shade, or are you gonna add various shade elements to it? Or are there gonna be chairs, tables, chairs, umbrellas, that kind of thing?
At this point, it's just trees as far as any fixed structures. Going forward, could there be the opportunity for some other more permanent structures? I think that's one of those areas where it almost makes sense to see how it ends up being utilized and find those areas that congregate that would make sense maybe someday in the future to put a shade structure if it made sense. But at this point, we're not intending on any specific shade structure.
Do you guys have any more questions? No? Okay, so I see we have people in the audience. We didn't have anybody sign up. Did you want to speak? Did you want to sign up?
I can.
Can you add your name? Okay, thank you.
So I'm Sean Mabin. I'm the attorney for the group. And so I just wanted to point out a few things with the plaza. Some of that, you're talking about shade, I think it's going to get a little bit more shade from the building because of the side of the building and the orientation. And generally, it's going to be, I think, open to the public. Obviously, we want to maintain it as good as we can, and we want to maintain it better than potentially what the plaza is, because that's going to be a benefit to all the tenants there to keep that as a nice looking area, and that's the main entrance into the building there. So that's going to be where the main flow is, so we're going to make sure to maintain that so it creates a high standard for the entire project. With regard to the church, part of our agreement with Urban Renewal is that we have a licensing agreement with them with access. So that's something that we'll have to have before we get a final approval and all our permits are approved through the city, and a final sign off from Urban Renewal as well. And then with regard to the brick space or stamped concrete, the idea was to match what's on the plaza, and the plaza itself isn't completely brick, so there's different types of textures of concrete over there, so likely it wasn't the intention to be all brick there, but to match what is pre-existing downtown. And so it'd be probably less than all brick would be the ideal, and that would match more of what's downtown than if it was all brick. And then other than that, the encroachment agreement, they're pretty common with the city. And essentially, it means that we'd have to remove that if the city needs it removed and that type of thing, and it would have all those requirements for ADA and whatnot. But other than that, I guess you don't need to ask me questions. I'm just public comment. But if you had any questions, I might be able to answer them.
Okay.
So,
Well, thank you, Sean.
all right, thank you.
Any other points you guys want, the commission would like to discuss?
I do not, just for procedure's sake, are we supposed to open a public hearing at this time, or is this all part of the public hearing? Okay, so do we have to make a motion to close? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
I would like to make a motion to close the public discussion.
I'll second it.
That was seconded by Commissioner Hanson. All right, so discussion is closed, or the public hearing is closed. Any discussion?
Madam Chair, just observation, I think it's a well-designed building in terms of the use of materials and trying to incorporate some of the natural historic character, yet putting a little bit of a modern twist to it. So it's unique to certainly downtown Caldwell in this area. So I'm glad to see that happening here. I think that the plaza design can be further vetted out. I think it's, something that can still be addressed at this point. I think they've adequately addressed any concerns from a code perspective.
Madam Chair, rest of the commission, I'd say I think just reviewing this packet and the discussion and the presentation that we've had from both city staff and the applicant, this is well thought out. It's clear they are trying to meet all the code requirements. There's a partnership with the Urban Renewal District. So I can tell a lot of thought and hard work went into this, and I appreciate staff's time and the applicant's openness on presenting this today.
Any other comments?
No, I would just say I think the building is beautifully designed. I think it's really cool to have the mixed-use materials. I would just say that the plaza, again, I would add to that, the plaza feels very nice, but at the same time, like, what is the intended purpose and what are the ultimate purposes of it and how will that transpire? I'm sure you guys will have awesome plans for that. But just making sure that line of sight, both to the bridge and then also the pathway. I think that fountain the fountain looks really beautiful in terms of examples that you have, and I think it would be a great addition. I also feel like it's kind of like right there where people would walk. So just I don't know, just how that would flow of traffic around the fountains through the bridge, especially during like high festival seasons. That might be an interesting conjunction, a relationship for people to move through, but that would be my only comment.
Great comments. I agree with everything that's been said. I think this is going to be a great addition to downtown Caldwell and continue the legacy that the city has been building on. Great example of mixed use. Best of luck if we approve it in finding tenants. Does anyone want to put a motion in?
Yes, so based upon the testimony and evidence in record in this matter, and upon findings of fact and conclusions of law set forth herein, I do hereby determine and move that case number DR 25-03 for the design review of a mixed-use building in the city center located at 510 Arthur Street is approved.
Would we like to add subject to the conditions of approval as presented in the application?
Yes.
Does it matter that much, Joe?
We don't have to.
Okay.
It would be assumed.
Subject to all the conditions laid out by city staff. All right. I will second that.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Okay,
Dovell Moore,
aye.
Hanson,
Aye.
Carlson,
Aye.
Abisher.
Aye.
The motion passes. Okay, I would take a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, I motion that the Design Review Commission adjourn.
Madam Chair, I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is this the owner or the
So he was
architect?
the architect that spoke.
Okay, Gerard. Okay.